Okay, today I'm going to introduce the TPI-1001-B. That is this unit right here. We will start by saying that the RF output is 35 megahertz to 4.4 gigahertz. It's a 50 ohm system, standard SMA connector. The other SMA connector is the RF detector input. This RF detector input is calibrated from plus 10 to approximately minus 55 to minus 60, depending on the frequency, giving you about a 65 dB dynamic range. Alright, some of the connectors on here. We have a 10 megahertz external reference input. Now this device has a internal TCXO that will do 10 megahertz plus or minus 1.5 parts per million at temperature, 2.5 parts per million at over temperature. If you decide that you want to add your own reference, like from a GPS source or something, then this is the connector for that. Now if you want to distribute that, there is another connector. It's the 10 megahertz reference out, and I will show you how to enable that. But whatever you have set internally or externally, that's what will be found at this port. The other port is an FM input. You can see 100 millivolts to 10. Actually, it's about 15 volts. Depending on the amplitude and the frequency, you will be able to do deviation. You'll set deviation. Obviously, for 100 millivolts, that would be narrowband FM. Okay, so now there's two mini B ports. One's for the USB data and one's simply for a battery. So this has a microprocessor built into it with memory. It's a powerful microprocessor, and you can set a control script, a modulation script. There are other features that you can set up in here. And once set up, you can divorce yourself from the laptop, but you still do need power. One of the things that I use, you can get these on eBay, these little USB power banks. One of these things will run the TPI-1001-B for almost the entire day. Okay. Last but not least, there's an auxiliary input port. I will show you the auxiliary input menu, but this can be used as a DVM, minus 5 to plus 5 volts. It's very accurate. You can also add a bit stream there and modulate your carrier. You can do a lot with this auxiliary input. The auxiliary input can work together with the trigger output. For instance, we can set a threshold on this auxiliary input, and if it goes above the threshold, a triggered event will occur. So there's a lot that you can do with this box, and now I'm going to just show you the software, which is really the key to this whole thing. So when you load your device, when you load the software, you'll get a link, or you'll get an icon called TPI link. Double click it. And this is the GUI. This is the user interface right here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on that, or at least try. Okay, this is the first video that I've ever made, so I'm asking for a little bit of grace. Okay, so here we got TPI link. The first thing you notice is that it reports the COM port that it's connected to. You can just hit the link. Okay, let's go through this. Serial number 161. Version 1.029, which is the latest version. Link to a TPI-1001-B. There are other pieces of hardware that this software will link to. This is the latest version. Firmware. We have written a number of upgrades, and they are available in a Dropbox online. So if I go to About, You can see right here that these are the different versions that can be linked to this thing. There's an email bug report or a suggest feature. If you click that, you'll go to an email to Phil Carlson, who is the genius behind this software. Most of the upgrades that have come to this product have come through this feature. People just suggest ideas. We've had very little bug reports. All the bugs are worked out. The software is amazing. We're linked to a TPI-1001-B, and there's more that can be seen on this link. But let's just get to the generator. Here's the generator. Here's the frequency that it's set to. The increment. The increment can go as low as 1 kilohertz. These are presets. You can set these presets very easily. I set them up to some general ISM band frequencies. You'll notice that the frequency is locked. It's locked to the internal reference. You'll notice that if I hit external, it's not locked any longer because I don't have an external source connected to the unit. And if I tried to turn the RF power on, you can see that it kind of complains about that. I told you that you could get your 10 megahertz out of this port to link to other pieces of equipment if you want to synchronize your other equipment. The way you do that is you just hit this button here, and that turns that port on and off. Let's go back to internal. Okay, here are the levels. At 915 you can get down to minus 90 dBm, and this unit is calibrated. You can the finest resolution is a 1 dB step, but you can take 2, 5, 4, whatever you want to set in there. So you can increment your power with that. These are again presets. The VCO is always on in the PLL, and when we turn the RF output off, basically we're turning the RF amplifier in the PLL off and the RF amplifier outside of the unit. So, but there's still a little bit of leakage that gets through the attenuators and the amplifier. It's pretty low down, but some people have complained about that, so we added this feature where you power down the VCO inside the PLL when the RF is off. I like keeping it on. If you're going to do a very fast frequency shifting, it's better that the VCO stays on. That way there's less lock time involved and that sort of thing. The next tab is a modulation tab. There's built-in on-off keying. There's a beacon. You can create a message. There's a lot that you could do with that. The modulation script, you can develop a prefix, a data, a suffix, a lot of different things you could do with that. There's too much to really talk about right now in a video, but I can tell you this, that if you need an app note, you can hit this button here. There it is, and you can get a application note right away. And then you can understand all the different features and how to set it up. Okay, I'm going to turn that off. Close all tabs. In other words, if you just hit this app note, it came up on the other screen. Okay, nevertheless, watch. Alright, so the same with the user manual. There's a user manual. It's over 50 pages long. Explains all the different aspects of this box, which there are a lot. Okay. the scan tab. The scan is basically, you can do a frequency scan, you can do a level scan, you can do both kinds of scans at the same time. And there's scan control, limits, you can set these limits. You can run the scan one time, continuous, or some number. It's up to you. It's pretty powerful. There's a lot you can do with the scan. And again, just read the user manual and you'll be able to see all the capability of the scan tab. The analyzer tab is something that I'll talk about later. Briefly, I'll just say that you can set a center frequency or start and stop. You can set a span, number of measurement points. The smaller, of course, the faster your scan. You can do both forward and reflected on this, and I'll show that in a different video. Setting the y-axis is basically setting this right here if we wanted to go to +10. Like if you're measuring an amplifier, then this would be useful, but for insertion loss measurements, 0 is probably good. The save part of it, there's a lot that you can do with a save. Copy to the clipboard, different ways to save the data. More on that in a separate video. Cursor, memories, you can put memories, change the colors, show them, do some comparisons, all sorts of different marker features, and that kind of thing. Like I said, both forward and reflected. The reflected requires that you use an additional 10 dB directional coupler, but I can show that, like I said, in a different scan or video. The control script. Okay, the control script is basically, you can write a script. For instance, there's a number of scripts that I've written. Just choose it. It loads it. Well, it brings it in and then you have to load it. This loads it into memory and it'll stay there. You won't have to load that again. You can run that here, or you can run that from the control button. The control button right here will allow you to run this. For instance, once you divorce from the laptop and you're carrying this up a ladder or into a different area, you don't need anything but a power source, and then just hit this button and it's going to run this script. Now there's the control button can run a number of different scripts. Square wave modulation, beacon, modulation script, a scan, a control script. That's what this control button will do. So I mentioned, okay, so on the systems tab, you'll see that I monitor all the power supplies. If they're out of a certain range, they'll turn red and blink. You can turn the RF output on here and see that it's 5 volts. I am not connected to anything on the RF right now, so it's transmitting into an open. You can transmit into an open or a short. It won't harm the unit. You can turn the detector on too, and you can see that, well, at 915 megahertz, we have the minimum that we can read is -59. So +10 to -59. It's about a 70 dB range, 69 dB range. So that's pretty good. Okay, let's see. I'm going to turn the RF off, detector off. The auxiliary input is at 1.61 volts. That's what I have set I have that set on my power supply and installed into the auxiliary input. It's very accurate. Okay, you can see that you have a load calibration from file. You can have a number of calibration files, like if you have a long cable and you want to calibrate that file out, you can call that long cable calibration. Once you've done the calibration, you can save that calibration to a file, and you can have a number of different calibration files and call them up as you want. Okay. You can see that there's a threshold here. That threshold is set there. I told you that the auxiliary input port has a lot that you can do with it. You can do all different modulation, scans, scripts, turn the RF on and off, that type of thing. And you can set this threshold here, and whatever happens in the aux port, if this voltage goes above the threshold, it's going to, in this case, turn the RF output on. And in the trigger, you can say, I want to see the RF output state. When the RF output goes on, I want this trigger to go high or low. You can set that up. So the trigger, you see there's quite a bit that can be configured for the trigger. There's quite a bit that can be configured for the aux port. And that's all I'm going to say about this video for right now. The next video will be strictly the analyzer tab.